In the sacred forests of Alaska Village, even a billionaire's son could buy neither mercy nor forgiveness. In the bustling halls of the university, where privilege met perseverance, Nonso strutted with the confidence that only a politician's son could muster. His designer shoes clicked against the marble floors, a sound that reminded everyone of his father's billions. Beside him walked Yuchi, his best friend and academic lifeline, whose worn backpack and calculating eyes told a different story, one of 6 siblings depending on his success. The university's field trip to Alaska Village wasn't Nonso's idea of adventure. He would have preferred a private flight, but the lecturer's insistence on taking the bus left no room for argument. The final exam questions will come from this journey, the professor had announced, sealing their fate for a 2-day excursion. As the bus wound through the countryside on the second day, it stopped near Alaska Village for a break. While most students filed into the public restrooms or nearby cafes, Nonso's nose wrinkled in disgust. "Those facilities aren't fit for someone of my status," he declared, heading toward a nearby forest with Yuchi and several other boys trailing behind. They hadn't ventured far when an old man materialized from the shadows, his eyes wild with urgency. "This is sacred ground," he cried, his voice carrying on the wind. "The resting place of Yuku, the most fearsome native doctor these lands have known. Leave now if you value your lives." The other boys scattered like leaves in a storm, with Yuchi close behind. But Nonso, he threw his head back and laughed. "Superstitious nonsense," he sneered, watching his classmates retreat. "My father's money can handle any problem, earthly or spiritual." The boys gathered around the bus, placing bets on Nonso's fate. 3 months, one wagered. "You won't last 3 months if you defile that ground." Nonso collected their money with a smirk, marching back into the forest. There he found an ancient stone covered in mysterious inscriptions. Without hesitation, he relieved himself on it, marking his defiance of their traditions. That night, the dreams began. Dark, terrifying visions of children pointing and laughing as he lost control of his bladder. When he awoke in the hotel room he shared with Yuchi, the nightmare had become reality. He had soiled himself in his sleep. The pattern continued, each episode more humiliating than the last, until Nonso's arrogance crumbled into desperate fear. David, a local student who had wagered against him, became his only hope. Through the pitch-black forest, David led Nonso and Yuchi to a hidden hut where a single lamp burned eternal. Inside sat a blind mystic, his eyes bound with red cloth, yet seeing more than any mortal eyes could perceive. "You dare desecrate Yuku's grave," the mystic's voice rumbled like distant thunder. 3 days remain before death claims you. Your only salvation lies in sacrifice your fertility or your ability to urinate. Choose wisely. Panic gripped Nonso's heart. As his father's only heir, losing his fertility was unthinkable, yet the alternative seemed equally impossible. His mind raced until it landed on a solution that revealed the true depths of his character. "Uchi," he turned to his friend, desperation warring with entitlement in his voice. "Your family is poor and you have siblings to continue your line. I'll pay you handsomely to take my place in this sacrifice." The silence that followed was deafening. Uchi stared at his friend, the boy who had helped him financially through school, yet now sought to buy his future. The friendship built on convenience crumbled in that moment, revealing its hollow foundation. "You still don't understand," Uchi whispered, backing away from the person he thought he knew. "Some things can't be bought." True to the mystic's words, Nonso passed away in his sleep 3 days later. The official reports cited natural causes, but only David and Yuchi knew the truth. They carried the secret like a heavy stone, a reminder that respect isn't bought with money but earned through humility. Years later, Yuchi stood in his corner office, having lifted his family from poverty through hard work and perseverance. The view of the city stretched before him, but his mind often wandered back to that forest, and the lesson it taught: wealth may open many doors, but wisdom knows which ones to leave closed. The morning sun rose over Alaska Village, casting long shadows through the sacred forest where Yuku's spirit still lingered. In his hotel room, Nonso tossed and turned, his sheets soaked not just with sweat, but with the shame that had become his constant companion. His father's billions lay useless in distant bank accounts, powerless against the curse that gripped him. David watched from afar as Nonso's desperation grew with each passing hour. The local student had seen this before: wealthy visitors who thought their money could override generations of tradition and sacred law. But never had he witnessed someone as stubborn as Nonso, who even in his final hours sought to buy his way out of fate. On the second night, Nonso's dreams turned darker. The laughing children were replaced by Yuku himself, a towering figure whose face remained hidden in shadows. The spirit spoke no words, merely pointed at Nonso with a finger that seemed to pierce his soul. When he awoke screaming, even Uchi, who had stood by him through years of arrogance, could barely meet his eyes. The third day dawned with an eerie stillness. Nonso had exhausted every option, approaching several students with increasingly desperate offers to take his place in the sacrifice. Each refusal stripped away another layer of his carefully constructed facade of invincibility. His father's connections meant nothing here, where ancient laws held more weight than modern influence. That night, in room 237 of the village's only hotel, Nonso closed his eyes for the last time. There was no violence, no dramatic final curse. He simply drifted away in his sleep, his last breath carrying with it the weight of his pride. The official report would later cite natural causes, a sudden cardiac event that no one could have predicted or prevented. David and Ushi stood at the funeral, watching as Nonso's father wept over the mahogany casket that cost more than most villagers earned in a year. They carried their secret like a stone in their hearts, knowing that revealing the truth would only bring more pain to a family already broken by grief. Years passed, and Yuchi's life took an unexpected turn. The lessons learned in that sacred forest shaped his approach to business and life. His first company grew from a small tech startup to a national success, built not on inherited wealth but on respect, hard work, and humility. When asked about his remarkable rise, he would simply smile and say, "Some fortunes are built on wisdom rather than wealth." David remained in Alaska Village, becoming a respected elder who guided visitors with firm but gentle warnings about respecting local traditions. Sometimes, late at night, he would visit the sacred forest and leave small offerings at Yuku's stone, not out of fear but respect for the delicate balance between the modern world and ancient ways. The story of Nonso became a whispered legend in the university halls, though few knew the true version. It served as a reminder that wealth, no matter how vast, could never purchase exemption from the consequences of disrespect. In the end, it wasn't the curse that defeated Nonso, it was his own inability to believe in something greater than his father's money. In the years following Nonso's passing, the sacred forest of Alaska Village drew more visitors than ever before. They came not to challenge its power but to understand the wisdom that had eluded one proud young man. The story spread through whispered conversations in university hallways and around village fires, each telling adding another layer of truth to its core message. Uchi, now a successful business leader, often found himself standing at the edge of that same forest during his return visits to Alaska Village. The contrast between his current life and his humble beginnings served as a testament to the power of perseverance over privilege. In boardroom meetings, he would sometimes catch himself touching the worn edges of his first student ID card, a reminder of days when hope was his only currency. The village elders used Nonso's story to teach their children about the weight of tradition. They spoke of how the ancient stones didn't differentiate between the rich man's son and the poor farmer's daughter's sacred ground, demanded equal respect from all who walked upon it. Even David, who had witnessed the tragedy firsthand, incorporated the tale into his teachings about cultural heritage and respect. In the bustling cities where Uchi built his empire, he encountered many young entrepreneurs who reminded him of Nonso's brilliant minds clouded by the arrogance of wealth. To them, he would share carefully curated versions of his experience, emphasizing how true success grew from the seeds of humility. Money can build skyscrapers, he would tell them, but it cannot touch the sky. Some heights can only be reached through respect and understanding. The transformation of Alaska Village itself became a living lesson. Tourism grew, but with it came strict protocols about respecting sacred spaces. Wealthy visitors learned to remove their designer shoes before entering traditional grounds, their Rolex watches ticking away seconds in humble silence. The old blind mystic's hut became a protected site, though few knew its true significance in Nonso's tale. In university classrooms across the country, professors began incorporating the story into their ethics curricula. They explored how Nonso's tragedy illustrated the limits of financial power against the boundless strength of tradition and respect. Students debated the nature of true wealth, whether it lay in bursting bank accounts or in the wisdom to know when to bow before forces greater than oneself. Uchi's own children grew up understanding that their comfortable life stemmed not from their father's wealth, but from his unwavering respect for tradition and his perseverance through hardship. They learned to greet village elders with the same respect they showed to corporate executives, understanding that wisdom wore many faces. The sacred forest stood unchanged, its ancient stones carrying the same warnings they had for generations. But now, those who entered its shadows carried with them the knowledge that some things remained beyond purchase: respect, humility, and the wisdom to recognize when to set aside pride in favor of understanding. In this way, Nonso's final lesson continued to teach long after his passing, a reminder that true wealth lay not in the ability to buy solutions, but in the wisdom to know when to listen, learn, and respect the traditions that shape the world around us.